Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, Susie and I sit down and talk with Brad. Brad is a former IFBer and a former pastor's kid. So without further ado, let's get into our conversation with Brad. Welcome.
Hello, how are y'all?
Good.
Good.
We're so glad you're here with us, and we just really appreciate the
Be here.
chance to talk with you. And so you had started to tell us you knew Jenny from the olden days, from way back,
Yeah,
huh? You
yeah.
guys go way back.
Over 25 plus years now.
Oh gosh. I know. Now I feel old.
That's like my kids earlier were like, my daughter's like, you look like maybe you're 32. And I was like, thank you. That is very,
Love that for you.
I know. And she was like, how old are you really? And I was like, 45. And she was like, and I was like, I know.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So Brad, take us well, first of all, tell us how old you are and where you're from, and then give us kind of a little overview of your IFB experience.
All right, I am 42. I'll be 43 this year. I have just recently moved from Alabama to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Love it. Love the South. Raised in the South. Love it. So let's see about the IFB. I was obviously born into it. My dad was a pastor, and so many things as just early in my memory of church people, pastors themselves, just things that has happened and that I was introduced to at a very young age really put a brick wall up in my life. Like, okay, I can't trust anybody. I can't do this. Well, I don't know if you remember this, Jenny, or not, but when I say is raised in the South, I think you might remember that, we lived in Louisiana, and my dad pastored there for quite some time before going north up in Michigan. But I was 8 years old, and we had 3 or 4 deacons, but the head deacon's name, and I don't, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not trying to be rude or mean, but I don't care if this gets to him or not, was Landon. And he was the head deacon. And he's messed up, like seriously messed up. He had a son, his name was Larry. At this time, Larry was probably in his 30s, but for 2 years, he molested me.
Oh.
And it all from 8 to 10, and I'll get into some pretty personal details of how it was then. From 8 to 10, I was threatened by his son's name was Larry. You can't tell your dad, you can't tell your mom, this can't come out. If it comes out, I'm going to kill you. All this other stuff as an 8-year-old boy, and this big old, to me at that time, tall man, you know, saying these things really struck home. Like, it scared the mess out of me. It really scared me.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, I didn't say anything, did not say anything. I'll go back to more of that here in a second. But me, Jenny, Jeffrey, my brother, and David, my other brother, we went camping, and it was on Landon's property right behind his house there. And we go catfishing and all this other stuff. Well, I got tired, went to the tent, and my oldest brother, this is how it all came out. Jeffrey was keeping an eye out, and I told him, hey, I'm going to bed. Well, Larry walked in behind me, zipped up the tent. My brother threw his fishing pole down and said, Brad, what's going on in there? And he would not stop until, it was open. Well, my brother Jeff knew. And he said, okay, we got to tell mom. And I told Jeff, I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is what's going to happen to me if we tell mom, if we tell dad, if we tell whoever, this is what he said he's going to do. Well, Jeff made me tell my mom. And she was just broke. Mom was just absolutely broke. She had no idea. She had no clue that this stuff was going on.
Oh, man.
Well, it gets A lot of people say that's horrible. Well, it gets worse than this. So go back into the situation of, from ages 8 to 10. It was very lonely.
Yeah.
My attitude started changing. At 8 years old, I didn't know what was going on at 8. I probably didn't find out what was really going on probably around the 10-year mark. I started figuring out, like, okay, what he's doing to me isn't normal.
Yeah.
This isn't right. Like, I started having that feeling about a year and a half to 2 years in, right before we got caught.
Yeah.
He got caught.
Yeah. I
Well,
like that you put it that way, because that's the truth of it. He got caught.
yeah, yeah. And, he would lock me in closets. He would go to church meetings with our church would go up to South Carolina to this camp meeting every year. And he would always want to be roomed with me. Out of everybody, he's like, "Oh, put Brad in the room with me," whatever. But the way that he lured me in was he worked for a candy company. And at 8 years old, I'm like, "Oh man, Larry, let me get some candy from you." He's like, "Okay." He said, "I tell you what, I'll pay for it, just don't eat it all in one night," kind of thing. So that kind of got me hooked. So every Sunday evening after church, he would bring his candy truck to church and invite kids in there. And
Wow.
before I knew it, things started happening.
Yeah.
And what really breaks my heart is I don't know who else this has happened to since we've left there. And there's no doubt in my mind that it's happened to other kids.
Well, and even happening at the same time as you. If he brought
Yeah.
a candy truck, what a bastard. Wow. I'm so sorry you went through that. And where I've had my own stuff that happened. And what's interesting is that you can look back now and you see all those red flags, like where he was doing that stuff. And even the like luring you in, like you said, and the candy, and then like the threats, and even I'm sorry, did you say that when you go places, he would request to be in your room?
Yes, he would always request to be in my room.
And your parents let him do that?
They If we get more into the story, I'll be able to tell you more on that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll put a pin in that one. How about that?
I finally tell my mom is absolutely broke. She's just broken. And I don't know, Jenny, if you remember my mom, but she's a small little thing. She ain't big, but that woman's a fighter. I tell you right now, that woman will fight for her kids tooth and nail. So what I said a minute ago, it goes from bad to worse, is and this is what I think damaged me more than anything throughout the years, was this. When I got home and I had to tell my dad said, "You have to keep it quiet. We got to protect the church."
No, that's the worst. You're right.
At the age of 10, knowing finally what is going on in my life at this time, not being able to vocalize it, he refused any therapy for me. He said, you just gotta give it to God. You just gotta give it to the Lord."
Oh,
I was 10 years old. I
Right.
didn't know what all that meant yet. I had no clue. I was made to keep it, brush it under the rug, keep it quiet. Got to protect the church, got to protect this person and this person. And all the meanwhile, here I am, my attitude, my innocence is gone. Now looking back on it, before everything started happening, I was so smiley, so upbeat, so, whatever. But after this happened, it was like I literally had to put like a concrete wall
Yeah.
around me, up above me, beside me, below. Like, I encompassed myself inside this brick room and concrete wall. It was just, I was never allowed to have any feelings about it. I remember one night we had a really bad thunderstorm there in Louisiana, and this was after everything happened. And I'm looking out my window, and some people say I'm crazy. Some people say, maybe you did see him. Lightning was striking. I look out my window and there's a silhouette that looked just like Larry.
Oh
And
man.
I went running through the hallway. My mom come busting out. She's like, "Son, are you okay? You okay?" And I'm like, "No, Mom, I think Larry's outside my window." So she went and got my dad. And again, my dad said, just tell him to go to bed. He's seeing things. So I dealt with this for several years before I finally got to the point of screw it. I'm not going to trust anyone ever again. But I do have to pause and say this. My mom, in spite of my dad, tried everything she could to press charges, to get him thrown in jail. My mom was a fighter. My dad would follow behind her once he found out, would go to the court and drop the charges. So
Yeah.
it
Oh
my
my gosh.
my
That makes
mom,
me want to hulk out right now. Like,
Yeah.
I
yeah,
cannot believe that.
yeah,
Brad, I like
yeah,
really, I ready to like rip something in half. I cannot believe that's
Mhm.
so awful. Oh,
yeah. So when I'm able to share this story, which I don't share it much,
right.
but I do have to say that my mom is gold. She literally did everything in her power to try and get this and let justice be served where it needed to be served, I guess you could
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And can I just say, like, as a parent, like listening to this, I cannot even fathom if something happened to one of my kids. Well, granted, my oldest daughter, we went through hell with her dad and all of that. And so that was hard enough. But to have a husband and wife who literally the mom is fighting for her son and the dad is like undermining the whole thing. I can't even imagine. So how or did it, and if it did, how did it affect their relationship at all?
You know,
But relationship, do you mean between my mom and dad or me and my
Yes.
dad?
your
No,
mom and
between
dad.
your mom and your dad, like being like the mom and dad in the relationship, like married, and he's undermining everything she's trying to do to protect you and help you.
Yes. So again, mom is gold, and she tried for another 6 years to make it work. But if you was to talk to her now, and she says this to people, so I'm going to say it, that was the ultimate reason why she started plotting for divorce, because
Okay.
he did not protect me as a father should.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
in turn, he didn't protect other kids. He didn't
Right.
protect
exactly.
her. He protected a predator and his
Yes.
own job. I have stuff like that happened to me when I was a kid, and I think about that a lot of like, why, not why do they do it, but why did people have that reaction? Like, why did they choose to act that way, to squeeze and minimize and push you into to conform into, and even your family, and all for the church? And I use air quotes for people just listening because it's not a real thing, there
Yeah.
was their motivations, it just sucks.
Yep. Yeah. I was for years. I mean, I learned at 10 years old to suppress these feelings. So even into my 20s, even into my 30s, I just didn't get any help for it. Like, I was like, well, oh man, it happened 20 something years ago. I should be over it by now. Nobody wants to
Yeah,
hear it. But, the more that I prayed about it, the more I thought about it. It's like, some people need to hear this story. Some people
yeah,
need to know that this IFB thing gets just getting way out of hand. It's just so way out of hand. How they protect their church when sin's going on. I don't understand that.
yeah.
I really don't. But, now I'm 42, soon to be 43, and I've been in therapy, intense therapy for years now.
Yeah,
But,
good for you.
and I got to pause and say, not everybody in the IFB is bad. Oh, yes, there
Mhm.
is bad people in there. Oh, trust me, I know. There's some bad people in there. But, and I don't hold any ill will towards anybody. Like, I've finally gotten to the point in my life where I'm able to forgive Larry. I am able to forgive Landon. That doesn't mean that I'm going to go out to eat with him. That's just not going to happen. But, I've gotten victory over a lot of things. And I really feel like I've seen what true Christianity is, and it's not in the IFB. It's not in that realm. I'm sorry. You can have your standards. You can have what you want. The true Christianity is just that relationship up and down. The IFB has this brotherhood relationship. You got to preach better than the one before. And Jenny, all this. And, it's nothing but a show. But, years of therapy, and it's my relationship with the Lord. It's the up and down, not the horizontal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But, I ended up even asking my dad one time. I said, Dad, why didn't you do anything? Like, what in the, why? Like, I was an innocent kid. And his response, it didn't really throw me back. It was more like, oh, okay, well, okay, I guess I get that. Was his response to that question was, well, I listened to my friends in the ministry, what they would do if it was their child. I'm like, well, okay.
Wow.
And it was, well, shoot, why didn't I see that? I should have known the answer to that, but it didn't surprise me. Go
What I
ahead.
find so fascinating about that is that, yeah, there is like this group. I mean, they all try to protect each other and
Right.
the culture they've developed, where
Mm.
they're protecting their way of life and within their version of what Christianity is or church, even that stuff doesn't happen. So that's their version of it. We know it
Mhm.
does all the time. In fact, it's
Mhm.
a hotbed for that. I mean, it's like a garden just perfect for predators to grow in. I
It
mean,
is.
and there's way more predators than there is any good people. But you're right. Sometimes there are good people in there. I know I'm mixing metaphors with my garden stuff here, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the thing is that it is, you never see someone in the church who goes to, like, if you'd gone to your dad and said, I know Larry just robbed a bank, he would turn him in like that. But somehow,
Mhm.
Right.
for some reason, sexual assault and mistreatment is so different than other types of air quote sense, I mean, I think
Absolutely.
there's like a even far greater word for sexual assault, like the evils. I mean, I want to discuss a bunch right now, but but the idea that, yeah, a bank robber or whatever, and you're like, I've known Larry's been robbing banks for 2 years. And then your dad would immediately like been deemed the hero for going to the police and turning him in and
Mhm.
stopping bank robbery. But
Um,
with this, it just doesn't end, and
Yeah.
It
So
don't.
after Jeff kind of at that camping situation where he was like, is there anything going on in there? Do you need me? And he sort of put a stop to it and then told your mom. Did it continue after that, or was that the end of it?
No, that was the end. That was
Oh,
the
good. Okay.
and I could tell you a little bit more about that. That happened on a Friday night, and a after Sunday evening after church, my dad did call in Landon, Larry, and Landon's wife, which I don't even remember her name. I don't remember her much, but I remember Landon and Larry. So I remember us all three sitting there in the living room of our house, and Landon and Larry agreed to it. Yeah, it happened.
no way.
It happened. Now get this. It happened. They both like, okay, Pastor Jeff, I'm gonna deal with Larry how I need to deal with Larry, and I'm gonna talk to him, and we're gonna figure something out what we need to do. And so I thought that was the end of it. Like I was like, okay. Well, come Wednesday night, me and my dad it's updated now, but back then the driveway we had was rock. It was a rock driveway, like loose rock and gravel. Well, Larry comes flying up, and I kid you not, he probably missed me and my dad slamming on the brakes probably by about 6 inches,
Oh my
6 to
gosh.
10 inches. He was flying up there, and he's like, "My son didn't do it. My son ain't do it. My son ain't do this." And all of a
Landon?
sudden, Landon changed the story, flipped script there. And
Wow.
that next Sunday, there was knives pulled out in church. There was fights broke out in church. People getting in wrestling matches in church.
Oh my gosh.
A
Over
guy
this?
pulled,
Over this
Crazy.
yeah,
situation. Oh my
oh
God.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was an all-out brawl there in the church,
I love
and
that for your church. I got to tell you, that's so cool.
yeah, I mean, some people had enough.
Praise the Lord. Pass
Wow.
the offering plate, and I'm going to cut you. Like,
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but
Wow.
Wow.
my gosh,
So did you know at the time that all broke out kind of because of what happened with you?
yes, I did, and
Okay.
even me being young and still kind of naive, I still knew church people because I've been around it my whole life,
Yeah.
even though 10
Right.
years. I knew that was a big part of it. I knew, but I also knew that wasn't just everything. And
Yeah.
if I can pick up here, and I can honestly say it's taken me longer to forgive my father than it
Sure.
has for me to forgive Landon and Larry. It was so hard for me. But anyways, years down the road, let's say, I want to say I was like 27, 28 years old. I'm in the military at that time. And I find out more stuff about Louisiana. I'm like, what? What in the world? Years later. And I'm like, and I always had this question in the back of my mind. I was like, why, Dad? Why didn't you do anything? He never really answered the question, but I found it out as to why. In the middle of all this going on, and the reason he did not try and get justice was because he was having an affair of his own. And the Landon, which is Larry's dad, the head deacon, Landon had proof that he was having an affair and said, if you bring this out about my son, I'm bringing this out about you. And my dad
Wow.
still chose to keep it quiet.
So who was he having an affair with, if you don't mind me asking?
Her name was Tammy.
Was she a
Uh,
member of the church?
she was the pianist, phenomenal piano player.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So he chose to keep everything quiet so he wouldn't get caught and busted.
Oh,
But
I hate that for you. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I mean, what you're talking about just is like the soap opera level of like, but what people don't realize is this is what the church is like all the time.
all the
Mhm.
time,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all the time.
And you
I,
found this out when you were 27?
yeah, I found that out when I was about 27, 28. I just went into the military, got out of boot camp, and then I found out, hey, have you heard about this? I'm like, what? No, I have not heard anything about this. And I tracked it down, and I ended
Wow.
up calling Tammy herself and be like, look, I don't really care now. I just need to know. Like, I need
Yeah.
some closure on things, and
Right.
she ended up admitting, that it did happen. So I was like, okay, like,
Yeah.
just be honest, I guess you could
Right.
say,
Wow.
just
Yeah.
be honest with me. So
Mm.
yes,
Wow.
there's definitely, and I'm just really honestly scratching the surface on some of this stuff. I mean, some of these people in the IFB, they're nothing but devils, nothing but devils. They don't care, that all they want is their agenda. All they want is fame and power in that local church. That's all they care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's a
so
great way
true.
to say it. A
Mm.
really good way. Now, how did you guys end up meeting? Because if you're down in Alabama or Louisiana at the time, right? How did you guys end up meeting? Because you were up in Michigan, right, Jenny?
From down south, my dad started a church called Cornerstone Baptist Church in, what's the name of it, Jennifer? Canton, Michigan. That's it,
Mm.
Canton. And that's where when we moved up, we started going to Faithway Christian. And that's where I met Jennifer, was there.
Gosh.
Yep.
So just curious, did your dad start a church up there to like get away from all the drama and stuff and like
Absolutely.
yeah, oh man, so many bad guys, let's just call them that within a church environment.
Yep.
I hope you don't mind if I attach that label to your dad? Like,
No, he knows.
okay,
He's very well aware of how I feel.
well, because the idea that whether it's an affair, and to me, sometimes those affairs, that is like power manipulation. You know what I mean? Like, here's a person in charge, and here's someone that is in a different position in the church. You know, I mean, all this different stuff. And we don't have to talk about that right now, but where all the stuff that happened there was your dad was like in charge of the ship, and it really, he let it into the rocks, and then so he sunk that ship and then just moved on to another one, because that's what they can always do.
Yeah.
If it's not going well, you just can go to a different place. I mean, so you went from Louisiana to Michigan. Wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
and nothing against Michiganders. I just hated Michigan. I hated that place so bad.
I'm with you.
Oh
I'm
my
with
goodness.
that. I hate it.
I could not stand it up there. So as soon as I got out of high school, man, I'm back down south, man. Forget all
Yeah.
that mess. I'm
Yeah.
gone.
Well, that's why I am wintering in Florida right now.
That's nothing wrong with that.
So, but how old were you, Brad, when you came to Michigan? Were you like 12, 13?
Team. It was halfway through my freshman year, I think. I think we came in halfway through the year there at Faithway, and we ended up finishing the year there.
Yeah. Yeah. And your brother was in my class.
Yes, him and Katie, his wife. Yeah, they were both in your class. Yep.
Yeah. I know they got married right out of high school, like at
They
18.
did.
I thought that was the craziest thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, but they're still together. I mean,
They're
good for
still
them.
together. Got 6
Yeah.
kids and beautiful
Oh my gosh.
grandkids.
Wow.
Wonderful. They're doing
That's
pretty
awesome.
Good.
Good.
So can I ask one more question before you move on to like, how did you get out of all that? Like, that's, I would love to know. And like, how did you heal from this? But your siblings, how did they react? Like, we know how your parents reacted to all of that, but like, I have to tell you, I love that your brother didn't just walk away from that tent. He really took a stand right there and just
good.
listened to his intuition and like knew something was wrong, and he stood up for you. And I love that.
He did. Me and Jeff don't agree on a lot. My oldest brother, we don't agree on a lot. We have our issues. He's somewhat of an IFB, but I tell you what, if I knew I was in a bind, I knew I could call him right now. And him the same. We're brothers, and we're going to be brothers till we die. So, yes, he did not walk away. He did what he had to do to make sure that the situation was dealt with right then and there.
Yeah. Well, how did your siblings react? I mean, even to everything, so there's the initial thing that happens, and then I call it the fallout of everything after that. I mean, just like a nuclear holocaust, all of that fallout is just as bad sometimes, and it's like what you were saying. So did any of your siblings end up being pastors at all?
My Jeff is.
Oh my gosh, insane.
Yep.
Good
Yep.
for him. I mean, good for him. I should say.
He is a pastor. Actually, not at the moment. He's not. I'm not going to get into detail of things. It's not his fault. But if he ever wants to share it, he can share it. But as of right now, no, he's not a pastor, which I don't blame him right now because IFBers. But
Right.
how did my siblings react to all this? We'll start with my sister. She's the youngest of it all. If you was to talk to her today, she wants nothing to do with God, nothing to do with church, anything to do with church. She'll slam it down real quick. And she will take you back to the day of when I told dad and she heard what dad said. And she's like, okay, I'm done. And she has not talked to my dad in over 25 years.
Wow.
That's
So
dedication.
it really shook her.
Yeah.
Well, me and David's relationship is different. Me and his is different than my sister or my oldest brother. So when David found out, I was walking out to the living room for that conversation we was having with Landon and Larry and Landon's wife. My brother put a pistol in my hand. He said, if you want to use it, go right ahead. He said, I'll put it right here in your back pocket. David literally put a gun in the back of my pants that I was planning on using.
Wow.
I was planning on using until my mom found it. My mom, she did not yell at me. She did not do anything. She just gently touched my head and said, "Son, give me that gun." She's like,
Wow.
I can hear it. I can hear it." Because I was playing with the trigger a little bit. Just give me the gun. It's not worth it. So David, that's David's answer. David is David.
Yeah.
I love him. Love my brother David. He's so wonderful. And then Jeff, he's the one who's always been so level-headed out of the six.
Yeah. It's a little bit more controlled.
And he, looking back now, me and him, we still talk about things that happen still to this day. And he was just so level-headed about everything. And it was like I couldn't really get a reaction from him because that's just who Jeff is.
Yeah, and David's just the opposite of that.
David's completely opposite. David,
Which I love that though, because like David is super passionate and he is like, I am here for you, bro. Like I'm doing this, but Jeff was there for you in a different way.
He
Yeah.
was. And they're both there. They're both there for me in their own different way.
Yeah.
But David's way is, I'm probably more like David than I am Jeff. I am not a level-headed guy. I'm a very passionate, like fulfilling man. Just if I feel it and if I believe it, you ain't changing my mind. This is what I'm gonna do, kind of thing. So, but yeah, that's kind of how the siblings were. It probably hit my sister the hardest more than anybody, just for the fact where she is now, which I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. I've seen it. She's seen it. She's been through some crap. So have I.
It actually brings tears to my eyes, each of your family's reactions, because in some way that is healing to you in the moment, but also then healing later. I know in my own intensive therapy and the stuff I've done, I've had those moments where I think I want to bring justice into my own hands and I can make it work, man. And then though, to have someone like David that shows you this is valid enough for this level of action. And then though, to have your mom help you just gently step away from revenge, like is so all of it's so beautiful. And I love that you had people in your life that did that for you. Like I just do it in therapy with myself and like my therapist being like, okay there, dear, you cut that out, like no revenge, but so I love that you had people who do that for you. I mean, my husband's like that too, but family wise, I don't have anybody like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they were great. They were really good. I think the other question was, you want to know how I kind of healed and got over all this stuff?
Well, and how you got away from it. Like you don't go to the Baptist church now.
Yeah. Right. How'd you get out of the IFB? The cult.
Okay, let's start there. Okay. I got out of IFB probably early 30s was when I was fully out of it.
Yeah.
So it's been about 10 years now, where I was just like, no. I started hearing things about other kids being molested and pastors raping girls and nothing being done. And I'm just like, I can't do this. Just the attitude of the IFB. It's just not Christ-like. The Bible, the Bible clearly states on what you're to do if you harm children. I mean, and I believe it. And I just had enough. Yes, I got questioned by my dad. I got questioned somewhat a little bit by my brother. It's just very minor with my brother. But there was other people I knew in there like, why aren't you going to a Baptist church? Well, you got to sit down. Let's talk for about 3 hours. And let me tell you, like, oh, no, I ain't got that kind of time. I was like, well, if you want to be in there, that's fine. That's your decision between you and the Lord. But me, I'm out. Bye. I ain't never looked back. Peace. I'm gone.
Right.
I'm leaving. It just got to the point where I was just sick and tired of the legalism, the Pharisees, the attitude, the covering up, I just couldn't do it no more. So that's
Right.
how I got out of it. I just had enough. I was like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
So when you got out, did you have a period of time where you experienced what we call deconstruction?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, I did. So let me elaborate on that there for a minute, Jenny. Okay. So when I left the IFB, I went to a non-denominational church. Oh my gosh, I thought people were going to hate me for life.
Yeah.
Well, I was going just to get away from the IFB. I was like, okay, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, I'm definitely not going to an IFB church, so we can mark that off the list. So I'm going to go over here to this non-denominational church.
Right.
And I was there for about 3 months, went regularly Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. They still had Wednesday night services. But the pastor ended up coming to me one night. He's like, you don't talk. He said, you've been coming here 3 months and you don't talk. I was like, well, honestly, Pastor, I don't really have a lot to say. I
Yeah.
said, I'm just coming here, just trying to heal, trying to figure some things out. And he's like, well, if you wouldn't mind, would you come to my office on Friday and, let's sit down and talk? Well, like, sure. I mean, if you got some time, I was like, that's fine. I kid you not, Jennifer. This man sought me through that deconstruction process. I began to tell him things that I've told y'all, other things that we don't have enough time to go into.
Yeah.
But he sat down and he literally was weeping. He said, no wonder you're so messed up. And he meant that in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I understand. Oh my goodness. And he took my hand, and for the next year, I never joined his church. Never did. Never joined it, but I go there faithfully. And once a week, sometimes twice a week, he would, you know, take my hand and be like, okay, this isn't right. The way you've been taught, this isn't right. This is what the Bible has to say about it. And this is what the Bible is saying about it. It was like this whole rewiring process in my brain.
Yeah. Right.
It was so chaotic in there when I left. I was like, okay, I don't know anything else but this, but there's got to be something better,
Yeah.
and that pastor just took so much time with me and really brought out the Bible and its true content and what it was trying to say, and really healed me and got me on my feet to a new Christian. This is Christianity where I believe I am now.
Yeah. Well, it's when you were first talking that this pastor took you aside after you've been there 3 months. I'm so conditioned to believe that what he was about to say was, we need you to leave. You're not participating, or even more nefarious is, if you're going to be here, you need to join the choir, or
Yes.
why don't you come to our men's ministry, or like start doing something? We need someone to mow the grass,
Yeah, I was
all
thinking the
those
same
things.
thing.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to find someone kind who is just nice to you,
Who didn't have an
amazing.
agenda.
Right.
No,
Yes.
he had no agenda, and not one time in all my time going there and talking with him in his office did he ever say, when you going to join the church?
It's like, hey,
Not
we noticed
one
your
time.
tithe. Your tithing is not up, or whatever. Oh my gosh. I just find this just as fascinating and shocking a part of your story. Like, I know when we talk about like being able to share your story out there, and sometimes you have like promos for podcasts, you're like, shocking thing happened. What I would want to say is, shocking thing happened. A pastor was really nice to you after
Yeah.
you shared your experiences. I mean,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That, I'm telling you, God put that man in my life for that period in time. I haven't talked to him in years, but I'm telling you right now, that man showed me a whole new side of Christianity I ain't never seen before.
That's awesome.
I'm like, wow, this is actually fun. It's not boring. This is fun, because IFB is so rule dictated, and I'm not against rules, but I mean, come on. Like, it's just some of these rules are man-made rules,
yeah.
and I firmly feel that serving God is not supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be fun. And this
Right.
guy showed me a whole different side of Christianity I ain't ever seen before.
Oh
It
my
was
gosh.
fantastic.
That's great. Well, and Jenny, I might have said this in one of the other episodes. I feel a lot like church sometimes is like a dating relationship. And for years and years, you were with someone very abusive. And then here you meet other people that are not. Like it does change things. And you're right. The rules in so many of these places, or maybe all of them, I mean, let's be realistic, they're arbitrary and asinine that have nothing to do with being a better person. They're just to get you to conform to what they think a good person should be, which is, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
it's mostly like image based, really.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the
Absolutely.
check mark system. Oh, I went Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday night, Thursday night for visitation, Saturday for choir practice. And then
Soul winning or whatever.
right,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, youth group. I mean, like each night or an afternoon and evening and stuff could check a box, and then you got like so many of the Bible studies and stuff going on, and it's it becomes a hamster wheel of nowhere, So you went there for a year and a half with kind people, and then this was still in the South.
No,
And
this was in Michigan at that time. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was in North Carolina. So yes, that was in the South. Yep.
Okay. That's
so
cool.
where are you at now with everything? Like, and you said you started going to therapy and healing, and I mean,
Yes. I really believe that God sent me my therapist. I go to a Christian therapist. Their whole company is called Eagle Counseling, Christian based. His name's Coleman. And Coleman is just he's so Christ-like. Like he's so gentle, loving,
Mhm.
understanding where I'm at, not judging, all that stuff. I've been with him for a long time and still seeing him regular basis. I can honestly say I'm doing better, but I'm not where I want to be. I still have a lot of hurt and honestly some anger that I'm still trying to work through. And it's been years of process to get where I'm at.
Yeah.
But he also says, it could be years before we get to the point where you really want to be and where I would like to see you to be. But God has really sent me him as well at a great time in my life. Been with him for a long time.
Oh, that's
Wow,
awesome.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Very
I'm so
cool.
glad. I feel like the compassion that you had before the pastor, and then compassion now, but like paired with science and helping overcome PTSD and just the trauma that you experienced. I love that you're getting healing for that, the physical, emotional, mental, and all of that. That's
Yeah, when I became of age, I'm like, and I started getting away from the IFB. I'm like, I'm my own man. I ain't got to ask my dad's permission to go get counseling or therapy. I was like, so I'm just going to go do it because I know I need it. My mom so gently all the time. It's like, son, have you been to any therapy yet? He said, you bet you've had a rough life, son. I just want to make sure that you're able to talk about it. With her just being so sweet and such gold mom, her encouraging me, I was like, yeah, I'll go. So years down the road, I'm better than I was. So that I can't say anything bad about that.
So if you were to say something to people who are listening who are still stuck in the IFB, what would you say to them?
Honestly,
Yes.
get the hell out.
love it. It's straight to the point. It's exactly
Yeah.
what
Get
we would
the
say to
hell
you.
out of there.
Yeah.
Get out of it. I'm telling you, IFB back in the day used to be a good thing, but it has gone so corrupt.
It
Get
has.
the hell out of that. That ain't God. I don't care who's up there preaching. It ain't God.
Yeah. So people who were raised in the IFB, they're like, okay, well, if I get out, where do I go? Right. And it's kind of that like you're sort of a fish out of water, right? I've been there, and going to a non-denominational church did seem like the right thing to do at the time as well. And yeah, I mean, what would you recommend to people?
I would recommend as what I'm just going to say what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to say what I did. I looked up other churches in the area. Okay. If it said Baptist on it, sorry. I'm not going. You can forget that, but I would find names and, do research on them. Like, okay, you know, what Bible they use, what's their dress code, all these things in my brain, like, okay, if a woman wears pants, she's going to hell. If a woman wears red to church, she's going to hell. So, it's like, okay, so I have all these questions, like I don't know how to get them answered. So I just started, you know, looking up these things myself, like what is
Yeah.
their code, what is their plan of salvation, all this stuff. I was like, okay. And come to find out, a lot of these non-denominational church believe a lot like Baptists, just without the
Mhm.
legalism and Pharisee
Right.
and the covering up. I'm like, well, my dad always said if you go to non-denominational church, they're going to split hell wide open. But they believe everything that
Mhm.
I believe,
Yeah.
and they don't cower down from it. They've learned to love people where they're at, because we're all in
Yeah.
different stages of life. We're all
Right.
in different areas of life. And that's one thing that I've learned to do, and that I thank God that get me out of that, is learning how to love people right where they're at, because we're all
Mhm.
facing battles that you can't see.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, in the IFB, it'd be like, oh, you got a mad look on your face, you're being grumpy, you're mad to the pastor, you're going to split hell wide open.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just don't make no sense.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to do your research. There is churches around that love people, and that want to see people brought closer to Christ. They're out there. You just got to do your research. Is it scary? Yes, it's definitely scary, but it's worth it in the long run. I've never been so free in my life as I am right now. I'm,
Okay.
I feel free. I'm not under anybody's thumb anymore. I still have my rules, I have my beliefs, I have my convictions,
Mhm.
but I'm not under anybody's thumb. I'm not,
Yeah.
this is between me and the Lord.
Mhm.
Yeah. So do you still have a relationship with God at this point, or?
With God?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so how is that different than when you were in the IFB? Because I know for me, when I left the IFB, it was like I was mad at God for a long time. I went through like several years of being like, screw you. Like you got me into this mess because I did everything I was supposed to do, and look at where I ended up. Like, screw you. Like I was pissed. And then I forget what happened, but something was going on, not like necessarily like in my marriage with my current husband, but I don't know. We were just going through like a hard time. And it was like, I felt like I needed to go back to church, but I definitely didn't want to go to like an IFB church. So went back to church and came back to God organically. And it was like a totally different experience at that point. Cause it wasn't like, I was obligated or I was told to do this or told to do that. It was like this draw that was a natural, like organic thing. And then the relationship just kind of developed into something totally new and better than it ever was. So, did you have like a similar experience?
Yes, very similar as yours. The only thing that might sound different between yours and mine was I continued to stay in church. But
Okay.
I totally understand at the same time why somebody would be like, I need a break. Like, I need a break. I totally understand that. I just didn't feel like that's what God wanted me to do at that time. But
Mhm.
this pastor that I was told y'all about here, he said something to me that totally brought a new light into Christianity for me. He said, Brad, when you were young, was you made to read the Bible? I was like, yeah. He's like, did you want to read the Bible? I was like, no, not really. And he's like, okay. He said, now that you're at where you're at and you see Christianity in a new light, he's like, can I just need you to be honest with me? How often are you reading your Bible? And I said, every day. He's like, do you want to read your Bible? I said, yeah. He said, it's this from being demanded to wanting to. There's a difference between being demanded to do something and then loving God so much that you want to do something. The IFB is so demanding, and they have these rules. If you don't meet these rules, you are a failure. You are a failure. But this guy, taught me the more that you fall in love with God, the easier this life gets to do the Christian walk with the Lord. So that was huge. The way that clicked over in my mind was like, because I was just the IFB, I was told if I don't do this, oh boy, I'm in trouble. But he eventually led me to the point where I wanted to do these things. Like, serving God is a pleasure. It's a joy. It's not a rule of thumb. It's like, here you go. This is the Christian life. Enjoy it. And that's one thing that I have learned over the past several years is the Christian life can be fun. It can be.
Wow, I love that. So now that you are out of the IFB and you are doing the work, you're going to therapy, how has what happened to you, like, has it affected your relationships at all? Like, in later on in life, how did you navigate that? Where are you at now?
Yes, that is a tough question, Jennifer.
Yeah.
But that's a good question. And I'm going to be honest. I have had failed relationships. My first wife, I ended up having an affair of my own.
Mm.
And boy, did I think I thought the IFB was going to kill me. I did. And, I regret that. I'm very ashamed of that. I've done something that was hurtful and sinful, done things and said things that, yes, it does hurt relationships. A lot of my relationships, I'm not going to go into detail on all of them, but from where I was back then to where I am now, I've learned how to, like I told y'all in the beginning, I learned at a very young age to suppress my feelings, to not talk about them, to, brush them under the rug, let it go. To where I am now that, through therapy, I'm able to talk about,
Yeah.
how I feel. Is it still a struggle for me? Yes, I still struggle with it, but I am able to talk and build better relationships and friendships. Over the last 10 years, God has brought friendships in my life that will be here for the day I die. I know that for a fact. And so from where I was to where I am now, yes, it's so much better. Learn how to communicate properly and trying to do better in all areas. But yeah, that's a great question. I like that.
Uh, Well, we really appreciate you telling your story and being brave enough to talk about those really hard, traumatic things that you went through in your childhood and throughout your life. And I know it's not easy, especially when, you've had such a hard time with some of your family members, especially your dad, and that really hits home for you. And for you to be able to come on here and share that with this community is just really amazing. And I know it's going to help a lot of people that listen. Sometimes even just like being like as a male, like you said, you were taught to suppress your feelings, to not talk about them, like, don't want to like cause any more problems. And for you to come on here as a male on this platform and to share this information is really something that you should be proud of, that you're able to do this. And it just shows that you are well on your healing journey. And I am so happy that you agreed to do this and that you're willing to do this and share your story with us. And, if there's anything you need from us, any additional support, we are here for you. We love you. And we appreciate you so much, Brad, for coming on today.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me come on. If anybody out there, needs help, Jennifer, you can Facebook me, whatever, and I'll give you my number to give to them. I'll be glad to help people because there's more to it than the IFB.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you're so brave to share with
Mhm.
us and to just help other people know that they're not alone in the experiences they had when they were a kid. And, where you were made to have to be so quiet, but then all of the fallout of what happened afterwards, like that's happened to so many people. And I don't know if there's been knife fights at church, but I do gotta tell you that I still think that's really cool. Like
It is.
where I ever went, when they were very like, it was all happening out behind closed doors. So the fact that was out in public is impressive. But
Them
anyways,
Cajuns don't play around. I'll tell you
right?
that.
Yeah, no, I see that. I love it. Like it's so much more. I feel like it's less calculated than that when you can just have it all out, and But I understand, like even then, that weighs on a child that here you said something, and then all of that stuff happens afterwards, and you sort of take that burden on yourself that somehow that was your responsibility just by telling something that was never supposed to be kept secret.
Right.
And so, like, I think just unpacking all of those type of burdens, the fact that you're doing that work too, and to be on here, like I said, to share and just let other people know that you're not alone, and it is possible to find healing and like kind
It is.
after.
It's definitely possible to find healing. I just encourage people who've ever been through what I've been through, get it sooner rather than later. Because you will ruin relationships. It's not necessarily your fault, but it will definitely help with the relationships you have, or will help down the line. So I encourage them to get it sooner rather than later.
That's a good point. And I agree, just making that something that people, even within the IFB, understand that this can be, it always is not, I don't even, again, just want to say it can be damaging. It is. And then how a person is able to heal from it, whether right away or later, is what makes such an important difference in the light and goodness in someone's life,
Yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, we do. We really appreciate you coming on. And is there any last things you want to say? Like, is there any social media stuff or links or anything where we can find you? Or like you said, Jenny knows where you are on Facebook, but
Yeah, all I got is Facebook. I don't really get on social media much. That's
yeah,
just not who I am.
yeah.
So I know everybody's on social media nowadays. I'm perfectly fine with not being on it. So no, not really.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That sounds like my husband. Like he's like, here you are doing all this stuff, and then he's like the exact opposite of me. You just rather.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Love it.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Brad.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's great to see you and talk
Good
to
to see
you.
you too.
Glad you're doing better.
Healing is a
thank
process,
you. You too.
a journey to be
Thank you so
experienced,
much.
not just a destination.
You are not alone in this. It's okay to take your time, explore different perspectives, and find what resonates with you. Healing takes courage, and we believe in you.
Together, we can enjoy the ride.